The night on Vornis Prime was colder than usual. The twin moons hung low over the dark forests, casting silver light across the ruined temples that once belonged to a forgotten faith. The wind whispered through broken statues and shattered pillars. The alien villagers who lived near the ruins never came close after sunset. They said ghosts walked there, voices of the old gods that cursed anyone who entered their sacred ground. But tonight, something new arrived. A sound cut through the silence, a low hum, soft at first, then growing louder. The clouds above turned orange as a small ship descended from the sky, landing near the ruins in a burst of golden dust. From its ramp stepped a lone figure, tall and calm, dressed in white robes that shimmered faintly under the moonlight. His face was hidden by a hood, and a silver cross-shaped pendant glowed faintly on his chest. The watchers from the forest, small, gray-skinned aliens, fell back in fear. They had seen humans in history holovids, but never in real life. Humans were spoken of like myths, beasts of old wars, conquerors who vanished long ago. The figure raised his hand slowly and whispered a few words that echoed unnaturally through the valley. "Let there be peace in this forsaken place," he said softly, his voice deep and calm. The air around him shimmered, and the old temple stones began to hum faintly, as if remembering their ancient song. In the nearby city of Gareth Dune, a young alien girl named Sarah looked up from her work as the sky lit up faintly gold in the distance. She was small and thin, with pale green skin and gentle amber eyes. She worked as a servant in one of the warlords' palaces. When the guards shouted that something had landed near the old ruins, she froze. Her grandmother had told her stories about that place, about a light that would one day return and end the reign of the wicked. By midnight, word had spread across the city. A human had landed. Some said he was a lost wanderer. Others whispered he was a demon dressed in white. At dawn, the warlord Krevoth, a half-metal beast with tusks like iron and eyes that glowed red, sent 10 of his soldiers to capture the stranger. They rode their hoverbikes into the forest, laughing and shouting. But as they entered the mist near the ruins, something strange happened. The sound of their bikes faded. One by one, their lights went out. The forest grew silent. Hours passed. Then came the screams. The people in the nearby villages heard them echoing down from the mountains, loud, terrified, and short-lived. Then nothing. Silence again. When dawn broke, only one soldier returned. His armor was cracked, his weapon melted, his face pale with fear. He fell before Krevoth and whispered. He spoke, and the light answered him. Krevoth growled. "Who?" "The human priest." The soldier choked out, trembling. He looked at me, and I saw everything I've done. Every sin. Every kill. And then, he let me live. That morning, the human priest walked calmly into the valley. His white robe was untouched by dust or dirt. The villagers hid behind rocks and walls, peeking from the shadows. The priest carried no weapon, only a staff with a glowing crystal on top. He stopped before the broken statue of an alien god and placed his hand on it. The stone began to glow faintly. A few aliens gasped. The statue hadn't glowed for over 1,000 years. The priest spoke quietly, as if talking to the wind. "This world remembers mercy. It only forgot who gave it." One of the old alien elders who watched from afar whispered in shock, "He carries the light of Eden, the holy fire from the lost wars." The others crossed their arms in fear. "If it is true," one muttered, "then no army can stop him." Sarah listened to the rumors in the marketplace that evening. Some said the priest healed a dying child with a single touch. Others said he made the warlords' hunters vanish into thin air. But Sarah didn't believe it, until she saw him herself. That night, as she carried water near the city's edge, lightning split the sky. For a moment she saw him, standing alone on a distant hill, his white robe glowing under the storm. He lifted his staff and the thunder stopped mid-roll, frozen for a heartbeat before crashing again. Sarah dropped her bucket. Her heart pounded. "That's impossible," she whispered. When she returned to the city, everyone was talking about the same thing. The warlord's statue had cracked in half during the storm. Some said it was lightning. Others said it was him. But Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the look in his eyes from that brief moment. The calm, the light, the power. She didn't know it yet, but that night was only the beginning. The arrival of the human priest would change everything. For some, he would be a savior. For others, a nightmare. And for Sarah, He would become the one being who would make her question everything she thought she knew about fear, faith, and what it meant to be human. Morning came to Gareth Dune, but the city didn't feel alive. The people moved in silence, their eyes filled with worry. The air carried the smell of metal and fear. The warlords' banners hung heavy across the streets, showing the mark of Krivoth the Iron Fang, ruler of the planet's southern reaches. No one dared to speak his name loudly, not even his soldiers. In the narrow alleys, slaves carried crates, washed armor, and cleaned the blood from the streets after the warlords' nightly punishments. Above them, skyships circled like predators waiting for their next meal. Among the slaves was Sarah, the young alien girl with soft green skin and tired eyes. Her hands shook as she cleaned the steps leading to the temple ruins inside the city. Rumors about the human priest had spread faster than wildfire. Some called him a ghost. Others said he was a fallen god come to destroy them all. As Sarah scrubbed the floor, she overheard two guards whispering near the gate. "They say the human carried something." "A light that burns lies," one said. "The light of Eden," the other muttered. "Only humans had that tech during the old wars. It could judge a man's soul, burn out evil." Sarah froze. Her grandmother once told her bedtime stories about the light of Eden, about how it could see inside hearts. She thought it was only a legend. That night, a storm rolled over the city. Heavy rain poured down as thunder cracked across the sky. The people hid in their homes, but Sarah couldn't sleep. Her window faced the mountains where the human priest had been last seen. Between flashes of lightning, she saw a faint golden glow on the horizon. Steady, not flickering like fire. Something inside her whispered, "Go look." She pulled her hood tight and slipped out of the servant quarters. The guards were too busy hiding from the storm to notice her. The streets were empty and the air smelled like ozone and dust. She followed the faint golden light through the rain, past the old walls, past the silent fields where the grass grew silver under moonlight. At the top of a ridge, she stopped. There, in the heart of the storm, stood the human priest. He was standing on the highest pillar of the ancient temple, his robe unmoved by the wind. The rain didn't touch him. The lightning flashed all around, but none struck him. His eyes glowed faint blue, and his voice, though quiet, carried across the distance as if the air itself carried his words. "Your gods have fallen," he said slowly, "but your sins still rise." Sarah fell to her knees, her heart pounding. She felt something she had never felt before, not fear, not awe, something between them. As he spoke, a sudden bolt of lightning struck the temple behind him, and for a heartbeat, the ruins blazed with light, showing carvings long hidden, symbols of humans and aliens standing together side by side, their hands joined in peace. Then the light vanished. Sarah ran back toward the city, soaking wet, her thoughts spinning. She wanted to tell someone what she saw, but who would believe her? The guards would laugh, the priests would call it blasphemy. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about that moment, how the storm seemed to obey him. The next morning, chaos swept through Gareth Dune. The warlord's massive bronze statue in the central square had cracked in half overnight. The upper half had fallen and crushed part of the market. No lightning had struck there. No one could explain it. Whispers spread fast. "It's a warning," one vendor said. "He's coming for the warlord," another muttered. "The human brings judgment." By midday, Krivoth summoned his council. His metal claws scraped across the floor as he growled, "This human dares to enter my land and frighten my people? Find him. Bring me his head." The guards bowed low and rushed out, but Sarah, hiding in the corner to serve water, saw something she had never seen before, fear in Krivoth's eyes. He masked it with anger, but she could tell. The mighty warlord, who had destroyed entire colonies, was afraid of one man. That night, while Sarah lay on her cot, she heard the sound again, the same low hum from the ship she'd seen in the distance days ago. It was coming from outside the walls. She crept up to the roof and looked out. The forest beyond the ruins shimmered faintly with golden light again. The human priest was still out there, alone, waiting. And deep inside the city, the slaves began to whisper to one another under their breath. Hope, small and fragile, began to grow, but they didn't know yet that hope always comes with a price. The next storm would not bring rain. It would bring fire. The city of Gareth Dune was restless. The air felt heavy like the calm before a great storm. The golden glow that had lit the distant mountains was still fresh in everyone's minds. Traders whispered about the human priest who walked through lightning untouched. Mothers kept their children indoors. Even the guards, usually loud and cruel, avoided the northern gates that led toward the ruins. Inside the towering iron fortress at the city's heart, Warlord Krevoth slammed his metal fist against the stone table. The ground trembled under the blow. Sparks scattered from his armor plates. His voice, deep and sharp like broken machinery, echoed through the chamber. 10 of my soldiers gone. My statue destroyed. My city afraid of a man in a robe. He roared. The alien priests around him bowed low, not daring to look up. Only one dared to speak. My lord, the people say he brings the light of Eden, the human weapon that judges souls. Krevoth snarled. A myth. No weapon judges me. He turned toward his general. Summon the Iron Fangs. If this priest breathes, he dies tonight. The Iron Fangs were Krevoth's elite soldiers, half machine, half living creature. They were known for burning villages and hunting rebels with no mercy. When they marched through the streets, the ground shook. Sarah, watching from her hiding place near the fortress gates, felt her heart drop as she saw them leave. The crowd watched silently as the Iron Fangs rode out of the city on their hoverbikes. Their eyes glowed red, their armor humming with energy. The storm clouds gathered again over the mountains. One of the older slaves whispered to Sarah, "They're going to capture the priest." Sarah shook her head slowly. "No, they're going to die." Hours passed. The city waited. No one dared to sleep. In the deep forest, the Iron Fangs spread out in formation. Their scanners picked up no heat, no movement. The air was cold, and a strange fog wrapped around them like a living thing. Signal interference, one of them muttered. Something's jamming us. Then through the mist a faint light appeared. A single figure stood by an ancient tree, his staff glowing softly. The human priest. He turned toward them slowly, his face calm. His eyes glowed faint blue beneath the hood. "Human," one of the soldiers barked. "You are under the command of Warlord Krevoth. Drop your staff and surrender." The priest tilted his head slightly, then spoke in a voice so quiet it should not have carried. But somehow, every soldier heard it clearly. "You believe in fear?" he said softly. "But fear is a god I do not serve." For a moment the forest held its breath. Then the light from his staff brightened, soft at first, then growing until it filled the clearing like a sunrise. The soldiers raised their weapons, but nothing fired. Their energy cores melted, their targeting systems screamed errors. One soldier screamed as the light touched him. He dropped to his knees, shaking, his eyes wide with terror. "I see them. All of them. The ones I killed." The others began to shout, trying to run, but the fog swallowed them whole. The forest echoed with cries that rose and fell like the voices of the damned. Then silence. Only the sound of soft rain and the priest's calm breathing remained. When the light faded, only one Iron Fang remained alive, broken, trembling, crawling away on his hands. The human priest looked down at him with quiet pity. "You still have a chance," he said. "Go. Tell your master what he has built will fall by the weight of his own sins." The soldier scrambled up and fled into the darkness. By dawn, he reached Gareth Doan, armor cracked and eyes hollow. He stumbled before Krevoth's throne and fell to his knees. "What happened?" Krevoth demanded. The soldier's voice shook as he whispered. "He looked at us, and our souls burned." Krevoth's face twisted. "Lies." But even as he spoke, the lights in his fortress flickered. For the first time in years, Krevoth felt something he hadn't felt since he was young. A chill. That same morning, Sarah woke from a restless dream. She had seen the human priest standing in a sea of golden fire, surrounded by shadows that screamed but never touched him. His eyes were kind but heavy with sorrow. She didn't understand the dream, but she knew one thing. Something had changed. By evening, Gareth Doon was silent again. The soldiers who had returned from the forest refused to speak. The city's priests locked themselves inside their temples, muttering prayers to old gods that never answered. And far away, under the fading light of the twin moons, the human priest knelt among the ashes of the Iron Fangs, whispering a single prayer for the souls of his enemies. The wind carried his voice through the ruins, and for a brief moment it sounded like the world itself was whispering with him. The next few days passed in strange silence. The once loud city of Gareth Doon now moved like a place under a curse. No laughter, no music, no shouts, only whispers. Everyone talked about the same thing. The human priest who had destroyed Krevoth's Iron Fangs without lifting a weapon. Sarah couldn't stop thinking about it. She had seen soldiers go to war and return broken before, but this was different. The Iron Fangs were feared even by other warriors. For them to come back weeping, speaking of light and voices, it made no sense. And yet deep in her heart something told her it was true. She remembered the night on the hill, the lightning, the glowing man, the calm in his voice. That image refused to leave her mind. She wanted to see him again, not out of fear, but out of something else, something she didn't understand. That night, while the city slept under dark clouds, Sarah made her decision. She wrapped herself in a plain cloak, stole a small lantern, and slipped out through the servant tunnels that led beyond the outer walls. The guards were too afraid to patrol near the ruins anymore. She knew she wouldn't be followed. The forest was quiet. The mist hung thick between the trees. Every step made her heart beat faster, but she kept walking toward the faint golden glow in the distance. The same light she had seen before. When she reached the old temple, she froze. There he was, kneeling beside a broken well, the human priest, his robe still white even in the dirt. His staff lay beside him, its crystal dim but alive. His hands were pressed together and his head bowed as if in prayer. Sarah stood there for a long time, too afraid to move. Then, as if he could sense her presence, he lifted his head. His eyes opened, blue and soft like calm water. "Come closer," he said quietly. She hesitated. I didn't mean to disturb you." "You didn't," he replied, voice gentle. "You've seen enough darkness to need a little light." Sarah stepped forward slowly until she stood before him. Up close, he looked older than she expected, his face marked with quiet sadness, but his presence felt safe. "You're the one everyone is talking about," she whispered. The human priest, he gave a small nod. "And you are the one who keeps watching from the shadows." Her eyes widened. "You knew?" "I felt your fear," he said softly. "But not your hatred. That's rare on this planet." For a moment neither spoke. The wind whispered through the broken temple. Finally Sarah said, "They say you killed Krevoth's soldiers. They say you made them vanish." He looked at her calmly. "I didn't kill them. I only showed them what they already carried inside. Some couldn't bear to see it." Sarah didn't fully understand, but his words carried a strange truth. "Then why are you here? You could have run. Krevoth will come for you." The human smiled faintly. "I'm not here to run. I'm here to remind this world what mercy looks like." She stared at him, unsure what to say. Her people had been slaves all her life. Mercy was a word that didn't exist here. Then, as if reading her thoughts, he reached out and gently touched her wrist. His hand was warm. "You've been beaten," he said softly, eyes meeting hers, "but not broken." A golden light spread from his touch, running up her arm. The pain from her old scars faded. Her trembling stopped. For the first time in years, she felt whole. Her eyes filled with tears. "Why help me?" she whispered. He looked up at the night sky. "Because someone once helped me when I was lost among monsters too." She didn't understand his meaning, but she felt something awaken inside her. Faith. A small, trembling kind of faith she had never known before. As she turned to leave, the human said quietly, "Sarah." She froze. "How do you know my name?" He smiled, but his eyes were sad. "Because it's been spoken in the light for a very long time." Her heart skipped. She didn't dare ask what that meant. Sarah ran back to the city before dawn, her mind spinning. She felt lighter, different, as if some invisible weight had lifted. But when she returned to her sleeping quarters, a shadow was waiting. One of Krevoth's spies. He stepped out of the dark. "You've been to the forest," he hissed. "The warlord will want to know who you've been meeting." Before she could speak, he struck her across the face and dragged her away. By sunrise, the whole city would know. The human priest had made his first friend on Vornis Prime, and Krevoth would make sure she paid the price. The sun rose red over Gareth Dune, painting the sky like blood. The city's silence broke with the sound of marching boots. Crowds gathered in the main square, whispering nervously. Something terrible was about to happen. At the center of the square stood Sarah, tied to a tall pillar. Her wrists were bound with iron chains that glowed faintly blue with energy. Her face was bruised, but her eyes were calm. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. Around her, banners of warlord Krevoth hung heavy in the wind. Soldiers stood in formation, their armor polished, their weapons charged. The warlord himself watched from his throne high above the crowd. Sitting on a platform of black metal and bone, a priest of Krevoth's cult stepped forward and shouted, "This girl consorted with the human heretic. She betrayed her kind. Her punishment shall be seen by all, so none forget the price of disobedience." The crowd stayed quiet. No one moved. Fear chained their hearts. Sarah lifted her head slowly, her voice soft but clear. "He is not a heretic," she said. "He came to bring light." The priest slapped her across the face. "Silence!" But just then something strange happened. The wind stopped. The banners froze in midair. The sky dimmed as if a shadow had crossed the sun. Then came a low hum, a sound deep and ancient like the voice of the earth itself. People looked up. From the far edge of the square, a figure walked through the mist. White robes flowed behind him, glowing faintly with golden light. The crowd gasped and stepped back in fear. It was the human priest. He walked calmly, his staff in hand, eyes glowing soft blue. Every step he took made the ground beneath him shimmer faintly like ripples in water. No soldier moved to stop him. Some dropped their weapons. Some even fell to their knees. He stopped at the base of the platform and looked up at Krevoth. "Let her go," he said quietly. The warlord rose from his throne, his metallic limbs grinding with rage. "You dare enter my city? You kill my men, curse my people, and then come here to give orders?" The human's voice stayed calm. "I don't give orders. I offer mercy." "Mercy?" Krevoth barked out a laugh. "You think you can scare me with light and words? You're a ghost from a dying race. Humans no longer rule the stars." The human looked up at him, eyes shining brighter now. "No, we don't rule them," he said softly. "We serve something higher." Krevoth roared and raised his energy cannon built into his arm. The weapon powered up, glowing red-hot. "Then serve this!" He fired. The blast hit the human directly, except it didn't. The energy beam split in two before touching him, curving away like streams of water around a rock. The air crackled, but the human didn't move. He lifted his staff and planted it into the ground. A pulse of golden light spread outward like a wave. It rolled through the square, through the soldiers, through the crowd. Chains shattered. Machines sparked and died. The power in Krevoth's armor flickered. Sarah's bonds melted away. She stumbled forward, free. People gasped as the light continued spreading, brighter now, washing over the walls, the towers, even the skyships above. For a moment, the whole city glowed. Krevoth screamed in rage. "No, stop this!" He charged forward, his mechanical arm turning into a blade. He swung, but the human caught it midair with one hand. The metal hissed, then melted like wax. The human looked into Krevoth's eyes and said quietly, "You built your throne on fear. I will unmake it with truth." The warlord fell to his knees, smoke rising from his armor. His red eyes flickered, then dimmed. The people watched in silence as the mighty Krevoth, the Iron Fang, the conqueror of planets, collapsed into a heap of twisted metal. The light began to fade. The storm above broke apart. The air smelled clean for the first time in years. The human turned to Sarah. "You're free," he said softly. Tears filled her eyes. "What about them?" she asked, looking at the crowd. He looked around at the trembling aliens. "They've always been free," he said. "They just forgot." Sarah fell to her knees, overcome by emotion. The other slaves slowly did the same, not in fear but in awe. Some began to whisper his name. Others began to pray. When the last spark of light faded, the human priest looked once more at the broken throne. "The cleansing has begun," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Then he turned and walked away into the mist, leaving behind a city reborn in silence. For the first time in centuries, Gareth Dune was free, but across the stars in dark palaces and alien fortresses, powerful rulers were already watching the light that came from Vornis Prime. They whispered his name with fear and anger. The human priest had revealed himself. And now the galaxy would answer. News of Krevoth's fall spread across the galaxy like fire in dry grass. On distant planets, alien rulers trembled as their advisors whispered the same impossible rumor. A human priest had destroyed the Iron Warlord of Vornis Prime, with nothing but light and words. For centuries, humans had been forgotten, believed extinct after the Great Purge. But now, stories began to surface. A figure in white robes walking through fire unharmed. A voice that made machines die. A light that revealed sins buried deep inside. They called him the Nightmare of Faith. On Vornis Prime, the city of Gareth Dune tried to rebuild. The slaves were free now, the guards gone, and the old banners burned. But the people lived in both hope and fear. The human priest had vanished after defeating Krivoth. Some said he returned to the mountains. Others claimed he dissolved into light itself. Sarah knew he was still alive. Every morning she went to the edge of the forest where the ruins stood. Sometimes she thought she heard faint humming, the same sound his staff used to make. She whispered prayers not to the old gods but to him, to the one who had seen her worth when no one else did. Days later, while searching through the broken temple stones, Sarah discovered something strange. A half-buried crystal tablet. Its surface shimmered faintly, alive with symbols she couldn't read. When she touched it, the tablet lit up, and a holographic figure appeared above it. An ancient alien elder speaking in a forgotten tongue. The message translated itself into her mind. When the light returns from the ashes of men, truth shall burn brighter than stars, and the corrupt shall tremble before the dawn of Eden. Sarah's breath caught. The light, the ashes of men. The dawn of Eden, she knew what it meant. The human priest wasn't here by chance. He was part of something far greater, a prophecy older than her people's history. That evening she followed the forest paths until she found him again. He sat beside the old well just like before, his hands folded in quiet thought. "You've been searching," he said softly, without looking up. She nodded, showing him the glowing crystal. "What is this prophecy?" "It spoke of you, of the light of Eden." The human looked at it for a long time, his eyes sad. "I hoped those words had been forgotten," he murmured. "Then it's true?" she asked, heart racing. He sighed. "Long ago, when the wars between species consumed the stars, humans created something powerful. A faith born not from worship, but from understanding. We called it Eden Protocol. It was meant to heal, to cleanse, but others feared it. They turned it into a weapon. And when they did, humanity burned itself away." Sarah stepped closer, voice trembling. "And you survived?" He shook his head. "No one truly survives something like that. I carry what remains of it, the light, the judgment, and the burden." The forest grew quiet. The stars above shone faintly through the branches. "Then why come here?" Sarah asked softly. "Why help us?" He looked at her, eyes glowing faint blue. "Because every world deserves one chance to remember what it lost." Before Sarah could reply, a sudden sound echoed in the distance, a rumbling thunder not from the sky, but from engines. She turned and saw red lights flashing beyond the mountains. Dozens of ships were descending through the clouds. The human rose slowly, gripping his staff. "They've come sooner than I expected." "Who?" "Those who fear the light," he said quietly. "The rulers of the Syndicate, the ones who keep the galaxy chained." Moments later, explosions lit the horizon. The invaders weren't armies of Krivoth, they were something worse. Black-armored soldiers bearing the sigil of the Dominion of Shadows, a vast empire that ruled half the galaxy. They had come to kill the human priest. Sarah's heart pounded. "We have to run." He shook his head. "You can run if you wish, but I cannot. Some things must be faced." "But you'll die," she cried. He smiled faintly. "Maybe. Or maybe this is where the prophecy begins." As the ships landed and soldiers spread through the forest, Sarah grabbed his arm. "Then I'm staying," she said firmly. "You saved me. I won't leave you." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Then stay close. And remember, faith isn't about believing in power. It's about believing in purpose." The ground shook as the enemy approached. The trees glowed with red searchlights. The night that followed would decide the fate of more than just a city or a planet. It would decide whether the galaxy remembered the light or drowned in darkness again. The human priest lifted his staff. Its crystal flared bright gold. The prophecy had awakened, and the galaxy was about to witness what it truly meant when a human believed. The night sky above Vornis Prime burned red as 1,000 black ships descended through the clouds. Their engines screamed like thunder, their lights sharp as knives. The Dominion of Shadows had come, not for conquest but for fear. In the forest below, the human priest stood at the edge of the ancient ruins, his white robes glowing faintly in the darkness. Beside him stood Sarah, her hands trembling but her eyes filled with resolve. Around them the wind carried the scent of ozone and ash. "They're coming," she whispered. He nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the burning horizon. They always come when the light is born. From the tree line, explosions shook the earth. Troops poured out of the dropships, tall armored figures with red visors and plasma weapons that crackled with energy. Behind them hovered great war machines shaped like insects, their wings slicing the air. A deep voice echoed from the sky, transmitted through every speaker and comm channel. "This is Admiral Zor of the Dominion. Human anomaly, surrender yourself. You are a danger to galactic order." The human raised his staff, its golden crystal glowing brighter. "You speak of order," he said quietly, "but all I see is fear hiding behind metal." "Last warning," the Admiral growled. "Resist and we erase this planet." The human turned to Sarah. "Do you trust me?" Her voice shook. "With everything." He smiled faintly. "Then remember what I said. The light isn't just mine." The first volley came without mercy. Plasma blasts rained down from the ships, striking the forest, turning trees into fire. Soldiers advanced in waves, shouting commands. The sky turned into chaos. And yet in the middle of that storm, the human priest walked forward calmly. Each step he took left glowing footprints behind, as if the earth itself burned with faith. When the first plasma bolt hit him, it vanished into light, dissolving like smoke. He lifted his staff and the golden crystal exploded with radiance. The battlefield froze. Every weapon died. Every engine went silent. The Dominion soldiers looked around in panic as their armor shut down. Their helmets cracked, revealing terrified eyes. The human spoke, his voice echoing not just through sound but through every mind present. "You built empires of fear. You called it peace. You chained the weak and silenced the pure. But peace built on fear is nothing but slavery." A soldier dropped to his knees, trembling. Another screamed and tore off his helmet, his face pale with guilt. The light around them grew brighter, gentle but heavy with truth. Sarah shielded her eyes. "What are you doing?" she shouted over the roar. "Not destroying them," he said, "showing them what they've become." The Admiral's voice cracked through the channel again. "Enough! Fire everything!" The warships above recharged their cannons, but before they could fire, a massive surge of light shot upward from the ground, straight into the sky. It pierced the storm clouds, splitting them apart. The light expanded, wrapping around the planet like a halo. For a few moments, every creature on Vornis Prime, slave, soldier, child, elder, felt something stir inside them. Shame, hope, peace. Tears rolled down faces without reason. Then, silence. When the light faded, the forest was still. The warships drifted powerless. The Dominion troops lay unconscious or kneeling, their weapons dead. And in the center of it all, the human priest stood, his robe torn, his body weak, but his eyes still shining. Sarah ran to him, her heart pounding. "You did it," she whispered. He smiled softly. "No, we did. The light only spreads when it's shared. But you're hurt," she said, noticing the golden crack spreading across his skin. He touched her cheek gently. "This vessel was never meant to last. The light burns what it carries, even me." Tears filled her eyes. "Don't say that. There has to be a way," he shook his head. "There is. You." From his robe, he pulled out the glowing crystal from his staff, now small enough to fit in his palm. He pressed it into her hands. "You saw the truth without fear. You believed without proof. That makes you the next bearer," her breath caught. "Me? I'm no priest. You're something better," he said softly. "You're living proof that the light can grow where darkness ruled." The wind began to rise, swirling around them. His body shimmered, breaking apart into threads of gold. "Wait," she cried. "Don't go!" He smiled one last time. "The light doesn't leave, Sarah, it only changes form." And then he was gone. The glow faded into the air, leaving only silence, and the faint hum of the crystal in her hands. Sarah knelt on the ground, holding the crystal close. The sunrise broke through the clouds, painting the sky gold. She looked toward the horizon and whispered, "He wasn't our nightmare. He was our salvation." Across the galaxy, the warlords who once laughed at the idea of humanity now sat in silence. Reports of ships failing, soldiers weeping, and cities awakening spread like legend. The Dominion's control began to crack, not from war, but from something far more dangerous. Faith. And somewhere in the endless stars, a faint golden light still drifted, searching for the next world that had forgotten what it meant to be free. The human priest was gone, but the light had only just begun.